What amazes us and what has amazed us here is not what we've done, but what he's doing here. You know, all that work, it's just like our lives, is the offer of our very lives. The offer of our very lives doesn't save anyone, but it's what he uses to save us all. And with that in mind, we can hope to, I just want to look at what's happened in these couple days and go back to the first questions that brought us here. The reality we create, when put to the test of experience, does not deliver on its promises. And too frequently, the ensuing frustration turns into anger, violence. We started out with a wonderful testimony about reality turning us to anger and violence, but that's not the final word. What are we missing? Why do we often perceive reality as disappointing? What can help us reconcile with reality and engage life as it is? Not as a project, as David Brooks was saying, not as something that's happening tomorrow that we'll get to, but right now. Can we say yes right now? How could we? Why should we? We're going to see a video now, and why don't you introduce it?
Okay, so for the past few days, we have been filming interviews with some of you, and I think we filmed about 40 interviews, and we're going to see 8 of them right now, and the others we'll probably see up on the website at some point, whatnot. We want to thank everybody for participating, and I want to thank the whole team of people who helped pull this together. The idea was to really capture the moment, what's going on. And I think the question that really resonated among people and made the most interesting, got the most interesting results from people was really what's surprised you, what struck you today, what really had an impact on you. And so let's take a look at what some of you said. And I think it speaks for a lot of people. John, you can go ahead and play.
Today, I just helped with the setup. I put down chairs and I attached the green carpet. And it was nice, yeah, because people were happy in doing it. And I was really struck by the fact that they were happy to prepare something beautiful. Last year was really struck by the people who were doing boring things like, I don't know, taking the coats of the people and welcome the people or serve the food, but they were so happy in doing that, probably happier than me. These people really want to make it beautiful for everyone, in every single particular. It's not that, and they don't have to, so why are they doing it? I mean, there is something more beyond this, and I want to understand what it is.
Seeing the work and the love that goes behind this, I was just really blessed and honored to be part of, and then interacting with everybody that's involved. I mean, from the first person to my last person, it's just been a great energy, great spirit, and great love behind this whole thing. There's a desire. We're all desiring something. I think that's, we might not have a title to it. We might not have there might not be a face to it, but we all know what we're striving for. It's the spirit, you know. I think we're all here for something we can't really grasp physically, but it's a spirit, and it's a positive thing. I think it comes down to negative or positive, and everybody is here for a positive a thing, a positive effect, and that's why I'm grateful and honored to be here.
There's a purity about this place and the people here and the things that they say and the genuine way that my friend knows a ton of people here. I don't really know any of them, but they still ask me oh, who are you? Want to know who I am and stuff, which is just surprising, because coming from an environment where it's just total opposite of that, this is kind of like an oasis, I guess. Yes.
I participated in a conversation with John Waters, and it was a remarkable experience for me because we are quite different persons. We talk differently, our background experience is profoundly different. But there was an immediate sense of a deep unity between the two of us. And that's one of the most remarkable things about the movement Communion Liberation, I think, the overcoming of extraneousness through the love of Christ and the common experience of faith. That's what struck me most.
The beginning, it was really kind of like a history project. It was kind of just like, let's find these interesting things about these people who were great, but they didn't really have any relevance to me. But that as we moved forward, I began to recognize that these saints, in their humanity and in like their weaknesses and even in their failings, I don't know, I could identify with them more, and I could see, that it's exactly what that middle school girl said, that my life doesn't have to be about me being perfect, but about paying attention and answering a call that I hear.
The exhibit on Justinian education, and there's one of the posters that talks about how educators, the most effective educators are witnesses. They propose, or I guess have a vision of life that's just attractive to other people. Because I see a lot of my friends and some members of my family just not asking those questions, or wanting to ask them but not really knowing how to answer them or even how to think about them in a way that would be good. And so I'd like to bring a knowledge of how to do that back to Princeton and back to my family and friends that I have.
My experience today was amazing. I was not expecting anything, and right now I feel so happy, so grateful that I came. Paying attention to reality, being in front of reality. It's something you just, like when you hear those words, like I just kept thinking, I wanna live like that. I wanna be in front of reality. I wanna see what he sees.
Keeping your eyes open, I'd say. Because I, for a while, felt like they were shut. And then coming here was actually like a really eye-opening experience.
Yeah. Thanks, John. John didn't see anything. He just saw these people but I would say he saw as much or more than anyone, because the evidence of what's happening here, we see in the people who are changed. And he's the one who spent the entire time talking with, interviewing, and looking at people who are changed. I think that, John, you've probably lived this more deeply than we have, who have been running around trying to make it to all the events, I think that I want to return to the first phrase from Giussani that we began with. Reality has never betrayed me. Reality as it emerges in experience is so positive that it presents itself as profoundly appealing. I changed that translation. All right. Profoundly appealing. Instead of appealing, we might use another word. Promising. And this is the key. This was, what was the name of the boy who talked about going home after the education?
John. I think it's John.
John.
Princeton.
Right. For him, he said, what he saw here promised him more at home. He can't wait to get back home. Because of what he's met here, he has more to say, a greater reason to be there, a desire to discover what's waiting for him there. It's a promise. Reality is interesting for us when it's a good promise. And this is so important because, as many people have pointed out to me, one of the recurring themes about facing reality, I want to face reality the way I see these people doing. Because we look at reality, and there's a lot of reasons to think about what, in school, you always see these posters. Think about what reality could be, Think about what impact and difference you can make in reality, right? If you can dream it, you can do it. But none of that says, can you love what's here now? In fact, we're trained from the earliest years to despise what's here now because it's so rotten, and to live for our fantasies, our dreams, our desires, our projects, our endeavors, our possibilities. But if the possibilities we have in mind aren't possibilities that are promised to us from what's here now, how can we believe in them? How can we believe in them? It started out really with that, and so many people have said to me, what I've appreciated of this, and so many things that I've heard and seen and read, is that the awfulness of reality hasn't been swept under the rug here. When we're talking about an attractiveness, a profound, appealing attractiveness of reality, well, that can sound like pie in the sky stuff. But nobody wanted to sweep away the brokenness here. No one wanted to sweep away the disappointment here. No one wanted to deny death here. I remember right when Richard Cabral, he really provoked me. He said, I escaped from the lie when I learned to surrender to reality things as they are, life as it is. And I said, life as it is, I think that's what we mean when we say reality, right? But then why surrender to reality? Why surrender to reality? That's a good question. Why surrender to reality when you know that reality is planning to kill you? And it will kill you, probably after it kills most of the people you love, and kill them very painfully. Why surrender to that? Why? And this is where we get to what Father Giussani said. The appealing nature of reality is that it communicates to us a promise. A promise. And that's why if what we've seen here is true, it's not something we're going to put in our pocket and walk home with and say, look at this great thing. I went to New York and I got this great t-shirt or something, I got this great memory. I got this great idea. No. What we get here is an open heart, a broken heart, looking for the fulfillment of a promise. Looking for the fulfillment of a promise. And when someone is listening and someone is promising them more life, more love, more happiness, more truth, more goodness, when someone is promising that to someone else and they're listening to that promise that's credible, what do you see on their face? Beauty. What is the most beautiful moment to look at someone's face? You look at the face of a bride on her wedding day. Because there's a man here who says, I'm giving my life so that you may become fruitful and give life and have a home. I'm giving my life for that, for you. And she believes it. And she burns like a bride. St. Paul calls us the bride of Christ. And this is what an encounter like this gives us. It's an encounter with a promise. And it sends us forth like a bride, burning like a bride. And yes, you're tired, you're exhausted, your bank account is empty. And that all of that sacrifice has attuned us to see him at work, fulfilling his promise. And this is why we want to get back to work, get back to our families, get back to our towns, get back to our schools. Maria Teresa was talking about having spoken with some of the volunteers, and they began to reflect on the episode that's in all the in all the Gospels, all 4 of the Gospels, of the multiplication of the loaves and the fishes. And how, and this is the point. Okay, I think the synthesis of the amazing content of these days comes down to this. Richard Cabral, in what you filmed him in, said, it's either negative or positive, the energy, and we want the positive. That's perfectly true. But here we'll take it all. We'll take it all. Because the question is not whether we find a negative reality or a positive reality. It's we find reality. And let it do what it wants to do, but let it keep its promise. Who is the promise keeper? Let it keep its promise, and then let it do what it wants to do. The point is this, that, in the Gospel of John, Jesus says to Philip, how are you going to feed all these people? And Philip gets angry with him for that question. He says, what are you talking about? We could work for 200 days and still not have a morsel, be able to buy a morsel for everybody. He gets angry at Jesus for this unreasonable question. But Jesus did it, says St. John, to test him. And then Andrew says, hey, well, there is this kid with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And here's the point about what we've seen here. Who thought you could really put on this weekend? Who thought you could really do that? And yet it happened, and it's happening. But how can that happen? Only with a kind of relationship with reality that we've seen here. And what is that relationship? It's that we don't have what it takes to make reality beautiful and exciting and wonderful, the mother who wants to raise her children in a beautiful, wonderful, exciting, warm, and welcoming home that is at the same time challenging and severe and everything like that. I can't do it, right? Well, why does she get started then? Why does she get started? Because she's following the promise of another. And what does she bring to that? Not enough. What does she bring to that? Not enough, and she knows it. And what did we bring to this? Not enough. Not enough money, not enough volunteers, not enough time. So why did we do it? Why does the mother do it? Not only were 5 loaves and 2 fish not enough, it's like way not enough. So like not enough that when Philip was asked about it, he says, there's nothing here. Right? There's nothing here. But it wasn't nothing. It was just so inadequate. So inadequate that he had contempt for it. Like we have contempt for ourselves when we see how inadequate we are. But what have we seen here? People came with inadequacy. But they came like Andrew, not like Philip. Because Andrew saw 5 loaves, 2 fishes. He said, yeah, but what's that for so many people? He did. That's what the gospel says. What's that for so many people? But he didn't have contempt for it. He brought it to Jesus. Because Jesus is the promise keeper. Jesus is the promise keeper. He looked at that. He didn't have contempt for it, but he saw a promise in it. That with that, 5 loaves and 2 fishes, who knows? I'll bring it to Jesus. This is how this weekend happened. And that's how our lives can happen. And that's what we can take away from this. What can we take away? We can take away that entreaty. Because if we've seen something exceptional, beautiful, or true, or good here, it awakens us. It's an evidence. It says, there's, in all this mess, reality is still promising me something. So what do I come away with? A demand, an entreaty. Please do it. I'll give you what I got. I won't despise it anymore. I won't despise it anymore. I'll bring it to you. But I'm coming away with this saying, God, do it. God, do it. That's what we're coming away with. And we don't have to worry about the cracks. We don't have to worry about the brokenness. We don't have to worry about how contemptible we are. Because He doesn't see us that way. We don't have to worry about it because, as we heard the first night, everything's got a crack in it. That's how the light gets in. Everything's got a crack in it. But it's not a matter of whether that's the negative part and we have to concentrate on the positive part. That's reality. Everything's got a crack in it. And that's okay. More than okay. That's how the light gets in. That's how I learn to ask, to beg, to entreat. Do it. I'll bring what I got. Please, be at work. As I've seen you at work here. That's what we got. I was at breakfast this morning with a group of kids from Colorado, and Jesus. Are you here, Jesus? Yeah. How old are you, Jesus? 17, all right. You're getting off to a good start. And I said, what was the thing that has struck you most? And he said, well, it was when John Waters was talking to us about the bunker. The reality we want to create, the reality we have in mind, the reality we gather our resources for, to set up, to respond to our needs, to make sure that the bad doesn't get in, all that sort of stuff. It's a prison. It's a prison, he was saying. And we live, and it amputates our heart. It amputates our soul. And it causes pain. And he quoted a Spanish poet. Anyone remember the name of that Spanish poet? I don't. Okay, poor John Waters. He speaks and nobody listens. But he's quoted a Spanish poet. And the Spanish poet, he ends the poem by saying, thank God that the pain remains, that the pain does not go away. Because it keeps me saying, God, do it. God, be at work. And therefore we have our eyes open. Not just here. What so many of the people in your video said was, in the last one, I usually go around with eyes closed. But here, something has made me open my eyes to see what's here. And what's here is a promise. And it makes us say, God, Jesus, be at work.